jump around now. Jump up and get down. Jump around now. Jump up and get down. Jump around now. Jump up and get down. Jump around now. Jump up and get down.
This is the funk bass your mom will appreciate.
Isn't it terrific?
Jump around now. Jump up and get down. 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 Jump around.
Okay, so we are back live again. What's going on over there?
It's a typical Wednesday here in Currituck. Wednesday night church dinner and back home to talk to you. So it's a very typical Wednesday.
So I was asking
And
earlier.
doesn't that sound exciting? Doesn't that, I know I'm supposed to be very excited and bring the excitement, but I'm a pretty chill guy.
You become chill over the years is what it is, right?
Yeah, things have changed a little bit from when you were little, I'd say.
Yeah, just a little bit. So I know right now, of course, the debates are happening to figure out, who's going to be the lesser of all the losers, I guess, for the Republican Party. I mean, let's be real. Again, Trump is going to win the primaries no matter what at this point. I think they've even been asking him that, saying, Trump, he might be in jail during this, but he's leading y'all by like 50 points. So what do y'all say? Which
we'll see. I'm sticking to my prediction. Neither of the two front runners are gonna
the only way Trump doesn't end up being the Republican nominee is if something happens to him medically. To me, that's the only thing he can have happen, is if something happens to him medically, or God forbid, of course, someone on the Democrats try to, do something about it, which we've seen a couple of calls with that. I think there was an article from the New York Times that had, half of the picture being Julius Caesar and the other half of it being Trump, saying that, basically saying he was the next dictator. And it's like, well, I wonder what you're implying with that one.
Yeah, I guess they secretly want someone to stab him in the back. I don't know.
It's gonna be DeSantis. No, I'm joking. No, it's with all of the language they're using. I mean, they love to talk dog whistles and language equals violence and all that sort of thing. They are absolutely calling for his. I got some stuff pulled up for the whole language equaling violence to them, because clearly it only equals violence if you're not a certain religious group. Apparently, according to MIT, Harvard, and Penn. So, but
it depends on the context. You know that.
So one funny thing about the debate, though, is that everyone's been hammering Nikki Haley, and that has been absolutely hysterical to me. I cannot stand that woman. She, to me, is the worst candidate up there. I would literally take almost anyone that even started this whole campaign season over Nikki Haley. She, to me, is the absolute worst of the worst, in my opinion. But Vivek and DeSantis...
You're a Chris Christie guy. We all know that.
Oh, yeah. With this bill, come on. Actually, I'm not sure if you saw, Vivek called him fat and told him he needs to get off stage and go leave the campaign. So
I did not see that, but I can't say that he's necessarily wrong.
And the best part is, Chris Christie keeps going through the entire thing. He keeps saying, he's unfit. He's unfit, and he won't complete the sentence. He keeps saying, he should say, he's unfit to be president. He's unfit to be. No, he keeps ending it on unfit, and it's just funny to me every time. See, Fat Christie over there. I think someone called him. There was another joke about what's that oil or spray you use on your pans
Crisco.
Crisco, yeah, Crisco Christie is why. But he keeps calling him unfit, and I just keep thinking oh, come on, stop using that verbiage. Use something else, man. Come on, you know what people are going to meme this as. But because funny thing is,
so you say they're piling on Haley.
Yes, they are, and it's been both of them. So real quick, I want to go ahead and pull this up. Just a couple clips from the debate. We're not going to play through the entire debate because, I mean, to be honest, it's kind of worthless at this point. If you ask me, I'm not sure about you, but I kind of think the debate is kind of pointless. You know, it's fun. I like seeing it because I like seeing debates, but it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But there's a couple clips here I wanted to show, and this is when Nikki Haley was talking about, of course, as she always does, wanting to go to war with more and more countries. I think now Venezuela might also be on that list too with some of the things they're doing now. But just watch this one little clip here.
I want to say one thing about the tie to Ukraine, if I may. So foreign policy experience is not the same as foreign policy wisdom. I want everybody at home to note that I was the first person to say we need a reasonable peace deal in Ukraine. Now a lot of the neocons are quietly coming along to that position, with the exceptions of Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, who still support this, what I believe is pointless war in Ukraine. And I think those with foreign policy experience, one thing that Joe Biden and Nikki Haley have in common is that neither of them could even state for you 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine that they want to send our troops to actually fight for. Look at that. This is what I want people to understand. These people have, I mean, she has no idea what the hell the names of those provinces are, but she wants to send our sons and daughters and our troops and our military equipment to go fight it. So reject this myth that they've been selling you, that somebody had a cup of coffee stint at the UN and then makes $8 million after, has real foreign policy experience. It takes an outsider to see this through. Look at the blank expression. She doesn't know the names of the provinces that she wants to actually fight for. And there's her puppet masters right there, the donors right there that are playing her like the puppet masters.
Hold on.
I just love that. Look at that blank expression. Look at that blank expression. She has no idea. But the funny thing is, it didn't fully end there, because then you also have DeSantis hitting her again on some of the things she said about transing kids. So this is, it's been a great night if you hate Nikki Haley.
Respond to the criticism. It wasn't about the Parents' Rights and Education Bill. It was about prohibiting sex change operations on minors. They do puberty blockers. These are irreversible. Talk to Chloe Cole. She went through this. Now she's an adult. She's warning against it. She may never be able to have kids again. That is what Nikki Haley opposed. She said the law shouldn't get involved in that. And I just ask you, if you're somebody that's going to be the president of the United States and you can't stand up against child abuse, how are you going to be able to stand up for anything? That is the truth. We have it on video.
I said that if you have to be 18 to get a tattoo, you should have to be 18 to have anything done to change your gender.
You said the law should stay out of it.
We're gonna get to this in.
So by the way, he is right. The video she does say just the law should be completely out of it, that this should be a decision between, of course, parents and their kids and all that nonsense. But this is how it's been the whole night so far. It's just been Vivek just pummeling Nikki Haley, and then DeSantis right after attacking her again. It's been hysterical the entire night so far. So at some point, you're going to probably have to, you might have to go and watch some more clips tomorrow.
Yeah, to be honest, I forgot it was on. The whole series of debates so far have just been a farce.
I mean, yeah.
This one actually, just from those 2 clips, it seems like it's the most substantive thing we've seen out of all of the debates with multiple people. But yeah, that's interesting. And I was a little surprised, not little, I was really surprised at her answer to that question about transing kids.
Oh, yeah, right? I mean, you're on the Republican ticket. You would think that you would just instantly go with the side of, no, don't do it. Like, even if you're on the side of, okay, adults should be allowed to because they're adults that can decide for themselves. Kids, come on.
Well, and I don't understand how this is any different than if a kid came up to us with bulimia or any other body dysmorphia type of a problem, we wouldn't just add on to the problem.
If a kid has anorexia, if a kid has anorexia, we don't go, no, you are right. You are actually really fat despite being 90 pounds. You know, you should starve yourself more and become your true self. You know, we don't do that with other things. And I mean, to a certain extent, right? I think we both have immense amount of like sympathy for the people who are dealing with these issues, right? I mean, I can't even imagine what it would be like to actually wake up every single day and not feel like you even belong in your own body. I mean, it does have to be torture. I can't even imagine that. But this whole idea of going, oh yeah, you know, the anorexic person, just keep vomiting, keep, you know, not eating, keep starving yourself. That would never be acceptable. So why is it acceptable here?
Right. And then studies show that over time, either they go to becoming hetero or homosexual.
Yeah. Yeah.
What will happen over time? They just go to whatever they were destined to be, or whatever we're going to say that how that works. But it's a phase in the majority
really
of cases.
Yeah, it really is. And it's one of those things where some people get stuck with it for life, and that's a terrible thing. But I think the case was, it was like over,
percentage.
Yeah, it was well over 90% of people who are young who experience it get out of it after they go through puberty. And I mean, think about it. It's not too surprised that's becoming more and more common among people who are young anyway. When this is I guess you could say a little bit off the rails, but I don't entirely think so. I mean, look at all of our media. What does it show for young girls and young men? And we talked a little bit about this last time. When's the kind of last thing you saw that like a young kid could look to as a boy and go, that's what it means to be a man? Or a girl could look at it and be like, that's what it means to be a woman. Like, it doesn't exist anymore. Now everyone's androgynous.
Well, and if it does, it's just way to the extreme of one thing or the other, instead of just people being good people and good role models as good people. It's just insane, the things that are going on. But I'm like you. I'm not saying, we know that it's a real legitimate issue. We're not saying that it's not an issue that we need professional help with and everything else. We just at least let the kids get through puberty and try to figure some of these things out, so we're not destroying their bodies.
Well, I was going to say this a little bit later, but I think I'll go ahead and pull this up now because we're already kind of having this discussion, especially when it comes to younger kids. You know, people keep saying, oh, what's the harm in it? What's the harm in it? What does this really do? I mean, you can look at the cases like Virginia, of course, where a girl was, raped in the bathroom by a trans individual, and then they covered it up because it was Gay Pride Month or whatever, and they thought it would look bad if they found that out. I mean, talk about the most appalling reason to cover up a crime like that. But, some of the other things that are going on is stuff like this, where
it's not just this. It's not, if it doesn't fit the narrative, it's going to get covered up. Whatever the narrative is, whatever social contagion is out in the wild, it's going to get covered up. That's
exactly right. And tell me, have you seen any mainstream media really talking about, or I guess you could I would call them legacy media now. I forget who called it that. It might have been Michael Malice said they should be called like legacy media or some type of old, the old media, stuff like that, instead of calling them mainstream, because they aren't mainstream anymore, right? They don't align with anything that's actually mainstream. But you don't see CNN or MSNBC or New York Times talking about issues like this, where, a school assigned an 11-year-old girl to sleep in the same bed as a boy who identified as trans, and the parents were not even notified over the situation.
No, they took a phone call from the kid.
Yes.
I saw him on an interview. I tell you what, good Lord help the administrator that allowed this and the coach that allowed this if it had been Megan.
I know, right? I mean, here's the thing. I mean, they're lucky. I mean, obviously, I'd be careful what we say on YouTube, but there's a lot of parents who would have responded much differently to this than just, hey, get my kid out of the room. They would have done a lot more if they told, hey, your 11-year-old girl is not to sleep in the same bed as a boy because the boy says it's, he's a woman. It's absolutely, and here's the thing. Think about actually the strength that an 11-year-old girl actually had to be told, no, you're rooming with this person, and for her to go, I'm calling my parents. I am not doing this. I mean, because a lot of people, how many people have we seen just bow down to this whenever it happens? You see, girls in sporting events constantly standing at like third place on the podiums who are just smiling and clapping like everyone else, acting like it's not a big deal. Yet this 11-year-old girl, obviously, you could say because she's a child, she's not indoctrinated to the same extent that some of these older athletes are and stuff like that. But this 11-year-old girl had the strength to go, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not staying in the same room with a boy. I'm calling my parents. This isn't happening.
I'm just dumbfounded by this one. I mean, where are the adults in the world anymore that stand up for what's right and what's wrong? That one just completely blew me away. And it's hard to be surprised or shocked by anything anymore.
Oh, I
But
know.
for some reason, that one really got to me.
So it said right here, the parents of an 11-year-old female Colorado student. We gotta say female now to actually make sure we can actually get through these conversations now because
Well, obviously, this article was written by a doctor.
because they actually know the
They
difference,
can
right?
tell. Yeah, they can tell, or either they, as AOC might say, they looked up her skirt because that's the only way you can tell.
Well, it says, 11-year-old female Colorado student are furious after her school allegedly allowed a biological male to bunk with her on a field trip to the East Coast without her or her consent simply because he identified as transgender. It says down here, the practice renders it impossible for these parents to actually make informed decisions about their children's privacy, upbringing, and participation in school-sponsored programs. And that's actually the big thing right there, right? Is it's even more concerning the fact they didn't even tell the parents. Like, here's the thing: if they told the parents and the parents said we're fine with it, we would still be saying what the hell is wrong with you. But
Yeah.
how evil is it to do something like this and not tell the parents?
Nah, dude, keep my grandkids out of public schools.
Oh no! I mean, hell, they're not even in daycare. I mean, thankfully,
I don't want to have to. I don't want to have to go take care of the problem.
yeah. Well, I mean, we've had so many issues here over in the Charlotte schools. It's crazy. Charlotte obviously being a more blue city, definitely not as bad as others, and we live on the outskirts, thank God. But there's been multiple. I think it was one of the schools around here had like a trans story hour where the transgender person actually was drag queen story hour. I forgot, they're actually different, aren't they? Well, I'm not sure anymore. I really don't know. But they actually were giving lap dances to the students, basically. Like, it was insane. All right, it was absolutely crazy. And so, like, we've already made a decision. Obviously, our kid's not going to public school, not one bit. And it's kind of sad, obviously, because, I'm not saying the public school I went to was great, but it wasn't actually that bad, all things considering. I mean, it had a lot of BS going on in there for sure. But for the most part, I had a lot of good teachers that I really respect, obviously, more now than I probably did back then, as I think happens with most students. But, for the most part, though, it was a normal high school experience with me just being kind of the, nerdy kid who got picked on a bit too much. But besides that, that's still kind of normal high school stuff. So it wasn't that big of a deal. I can't imagine if this was, and the worst thing we had to worry about when I was in high school was they would be pushing all the global warming crap on us. But besides that, it really wasn't that bad. But now...
So that might be the most understated thing you've ever said. The fact that you respect more now than you did, that's good. But I think you're being a little overly cautious with that statement. But but no, you got suspended for a lot of different things. But typically, when I was fighting, it wasn't because you were getting picked on; it's because people were picking on your friends.
Yeah, I think the last time I got suspended, I'm the one who was getting picked on, and I just was having a bad day, and I threw him against the wall. Kind of not saying you should do it exactly. I'm just saying that's what happened. But here's the good part. Obviously, he didn't mess with me or any of my friends for the rest of the year. So I mean, hey, I get to stay at home and play video games for 2 days, and the guy never bullies us again. Win-win. I mean, come on.
I think my favorite thing you got in trouble for was when you had your little business going selling snacks on the side out of your backpack.
Oh man, yeah. I was selling it wasn't snack, it was sodas. I went and bought the Sam's Cola because they were like $3 for a 12-pack, and I sold them $1 a piece. And I called into the office because when Michelle Obama was doing the whole health kick thing, and they said they could like fine me $5,000 and expel me from the school. And then, like, right after that, I turned around and did a 50-50 raffle where you could buy tickets for, like, $5. And at the end of the day, I'd pull one and, we split the raffle. And then I think I got suspended for a day or two from that one. And they told me technically that could be criminal charges. And I remember being in the principal office even saying, the school owns a lottery. How can you tell me I can't run a lottery?
Yeah, it's called the education lottery, right?
Yeah.
I I never got too upset with your entrepreneurial pursuits. You weren't selling drugs or anything, so I was okay with it.
Man, I could have made so much more money at that school, I'll tell you what. So it's not a long article here, though. You know, it's really just them saying that, you know, they weren't even told the fact that this was happening. The girl had to actually call her parents, and luckily one of the parents was a chaperone on the whole thing, and so they were able to instantly get things like switched and separated. But how does something just even happen in the first place? It really shows, I think, just how far things have fallen.
Well, I forget I'm on a tape delay here watching. There was a part of the article, it says that what the main concern throughout was the boys' feelings. They never even considered the girls' feelings in the matter.
Oh, yeah. Throughout the entire evening, the male students' privacy and feelings were always a primary concern. Well, I mean, that's always been the case, right? And you see this case even when if you're at like a place of employment. And I remember saying this back when Obama was president, actually, where someone would say, and this was, again, actually back when I was in school, someone would say something about Obama, saying, you know, praising him, and I would say no, and, you know, X, Y, and Z, why no. And they would tell me, James, you gotta drop the politics stuff. You can't be talking too much politics. Well, they're the ones who started talking politics. Why is the burden always on the right in these cases? It's always caring about the left's feelings before the right every time. And it's not just in this issue, it's in all issues. All right, if someone went to work right now, wherever you work, and said, you know, all this great stuff about Biden, no one's going to say a word to them about it. But if you went in there and said, oh man, I just really love Trump, I think Trump did a great job for our country, you would be called into HR. I guarantee it.
No doubt. I can't refute that. I can't refute that at all. The same thing. I mean, the same thing happens at some of our family gatherings, depending on who's there. You know, we're the ones that have to be more careful.
That is true. Then again, I don't know. We sit pretty far on the right, I think. So maybe.
No, we don't. No, we don't. We do in today's world, but we sit. We're completely right on the common sense conservative right. Everything is just going haywire.
You might be more so than me. I mean, I'm on the side of let's take away the rights to vote for many people and actually set up a standard for who can and can't vote. Maybe take a test to make sure you're even competent enough. I don't know. I kind of want to return back to the really olden days of back when we were a republic, not even remotely a democracy. I want to take away almost all forms of democracy.
No, obviously, I think moving to direct vote for Senate was a terrible mistake. So that
is the worst amendment in the entire Constitution to me. I still do not think there's one that beats it. I really don't. I know people want to joke and say the 19th. I'm telling you though, that is way worse. Yeah, the Senate was supposed to be the stopgap of the states. It was multiple forms of government. Like the checks and balances involved the states having a check on the power of the federal government, and the Senate was that check. Now there is no check. It's the people's power and the federal power, and no state power involved whatsoever. Now it completely destroyed the entire process.
Explain the fact that senators represent states, not people.
Yes.
No, that just goes right over everybody.
You know how many events I was at where people were asking, state senators, well, we have bad roads around here. What are you going to do about that? And of course, you have to come up with some BS answer that sounds like they're actually going to do something, when I just want them to say, are you stupid? That's your local official. Deal with them. Next question. I'm sorry, if you actually ask a senator, a U.S. senator, to fix your roads on your street, you should not be allowed to vote. Take away your right to vote. I don't want to see you voting.
But who's going to build the roads if the federal government doesn't do it?
But I don't even know how we got on this train, on this track, but
no, it was probably me. I follow a lot of rabbits and rabbit holes, but that's all right. We were talking about just how it's always our feelings on the right. That's how you got it started. You said always the ones on the right that have to curb our speech because we might hurt somebody's feelings, and it goes right along with your theme for tonight, where we got evidence of words being violence.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull that one up right now, because this is absolutely insane. So we've all seen like a lot of the crazy stuff happening on college campuses, and of course them attacking Jews especially right now because of the whole Israel-Palestine conflict. I mean, I'm just be real. Did the Jews ever get like a good like generation ever that just doesn't have to deal with this crap? They just consistently keep drawing the short straw. Like, I just don't get it. But
I tell you what, this was, again, things typically don't surprise me so much anymore. But the fact that they can just brazenly sit in this committee hearing, knowing that it's being filmed, knowing that it's going to go out to the world, and just say these things, unbelievable. I mean, it's they say the quiet parts out loud. That old saying. I mean, it's just unbelievable that they feel comfortable enough to say this.
Yeah, and again, these are the presidents of Harvard, MIT, and Penn. I'm only going to play a segment of it, one of the responses, because all the responses were the exact same thing, almost like as if they rehearsed it, right? I mean,
yeah.
So here we go. I'm going to set this up to play.
At Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill. So is your testimony that you will not answer yes?
If it if the
yes
speech
or
becomes
no?
if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? The speech is not harassment? This is unacceptable, Ms. McGill.
So it pretty much went like that with every single person that was up there, with them all saying, oh, it matters about the context of which they're saying it. Again, if you went on a college campus right now and said you were anti-abortion and just went on and on about that, there's a good chance you're going to be pulled into the dean's office and be chastised pretty heavily. Yeah, of course, they go around.
You will be escorted away in cuffs.
Yes. In many cases, that actually has happened. I mean, don't forget when Ben Shapiro went and did a speech, I believe it might have been the Berkeley speech. It might have been a different one, though, where they told him straight up, no, if you come onto the college campus, we will arrest you. Right? So Ben Shapiro, a Jew, again, I mean, that should show you something about these college campuses. He can't go up there and actually speak about what he believes in, but these other students can go around chanting actual genocide to Jews, and they be completely free, and they'll defend them. They'll actually sit here and defend them in a congressional hearing.
No, and so the last time we talked, we were talking about Musk and the GFY and him as the defender of free speech, because we're free speech absolutists is the words that we use. But as a free speech absolutist, it doesn't mean we believe in libel. It doesn't mean we believe that you can, whether it's print, written, or anything else, libel, slander, we don't believe you should do that. And we also don't believe in threats, valid threats. And so as a free speech absolutist, I don't think a gang of people should be allowed to roam the streets, say death to Israel.
Yeah, well, again, it
every
is an active threat.
Every Jew. Did you hear the students talking about what was being screamed at them?
Yeah,
they were literally being told, "We're going to kill you, you blanking Jew."
Yes, and there was one case where they were having to like lock themselves in a library. There was one case where they literally said, they were hiding like in the upper areas of the library, which made me think instantly like Anne Frank, right? Hiding in the attic while people were trying to bust down the door saying "Death to Jews." Like, it was insane.
Yeah. There have been multiple attic memes that have come out since that. So it's a valid. I mean, it's a valid imagery.
Yeah, and it's one of these things where they want to keep saying the right is fat, the right is Nazis, the right is Nazis, the right are Nazis. I mean, we go down the whole rabbit hole of saying why Nazism is actually more akin to the left if we want some more time, but they're actively straight up right now calling for the death of Jews and defending it. Here's my thing, though. I really want to know, where are the people on the, you could say, mainstream right, aka Fox News, that kind of stuff, who are just straight up saying, no, they're Nazis. Like, where are they to come back with the same rhetoric they've been using against us? Because here's the thing. I know we sit there and say, oh, well, two wrongs don't make a right, or if they do it, we need to stoop to their level. No, if someone hits you, it's okay to hit them back, right? Punching someone is wrong. Punching someone back is okay. If they're going to sit there and call everyone Nazis, why don't they do actual things that relate to Nazis and we call them that as well? Instead, we have to play this game where we act as if, well, they have some actual real, issues they're concerned about, and they're just a little bit agitated is all. It's insane.
It's just unbelievable. And whether it's called punching back or just defending your factual positions, we just have to be more vocal about it. And so, you're seeing more and more people that are getting chastised for using humor to fight back. And that's on any of these issues, whether it's Riley Gaines and the trans issue or this one. Good luck, because we need to be ridiculing things that should be ridiculed.
Well, I've been saying for a long time, like, when you see a lot of these people acting insane at these like pride parades and stuff like that, especially, what didn't work back in the day was going like, oh, you're a spawn of Satan and all that crazy crap, right? That doesn't work, right? It just doesn't work at all. What does work is ridicule and laughter. So, if Junior asked me something about like, hey, why is that man in a dress? I'm not going to go, oh, because he's just, I'm not going to be really serious about it. I'm going to be like, because he's a crazy whack job, and move on and kind of laugh about it, because that hurts them way more than actually getting on them about the serious issues when it comes to a lot of that stuff. The left hates to be laughed at. They really do, because for so long, they were the members who were doing the laughing, right? They were the comedians. They were the ones going up there constantly insulting the right with stuff like Jon Stewart and Colbert and all of them. Now, let's be real, you go back and watch like old school like George Carlin, he's making fun of the left, not the right now.
Yeah, there's been a switch for sure. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
It is like the thing is like the first time like the right's really been anti-war, had a strong anti-war faction for the most part, at least on the Republican Party. You could say you could call some of the old school isolationist, right wing to a certain degree, but now it wasn't that long ago when all the anti-war stuff was going against Republicans, and now it's switched where now it's going against the Democrats and more of the Nikki Haley neocon type Republicans. But
and maybe the most amazing thing of all to me is the anti-government left is now in the hip pocket and pro-government, cradle to grave. Man, they've just taken it because they saw they can wield power with it.
Because they've never been anti-government is the thing. That's the thing. They've never really been anti-government. They've always been pro-government, but their vision of government is all. They were mostly just communists, right? So they were all for overthrowing the government because the government represents capitalism. Now that they can try to convert it over and they're actually gaining grounds in some ways when it comes to, a higher degree of federal power over the people, they're all for it because they're government. And it's the, no truth but power. You know what I mean? So
I think the other thing that hurt the right was that the left were true believers, and so when you're a true believer, you really are going to stick to it and fight for it and incremental and all that sort of thing. Our side was saying live free or die, but we definitely weren't living it.
Well, let's be real. For a long time, the right really hasn't been the live free or die, because we kept making concession after concession after concession, a long time there thought that the left was acting in,
good faith
and, playing a fair game here, but they never have been. But think about it this way. Ronald Reagan, everyone loves Ronald Reagan. He's a great conservative. He did a lot of awesome things, but he passed, some of the biggest anti-2A bills ever conceived. And it was done somewhat as a concession to both parties in a way. And what did we get out of it? We got nothing out of it, right? It made no sense. He also decided, okay, well, we'll concede a little bit here with some of the amnesty stuff. And back then, I could totally get why people would think, okay, that might be the best thing to do. But by that point, the Democrats were already taken over by mostly communists who didn't care about any bit of truth or any bit of, actually playing fair here. They didn't care about the country. So when you concede to them, it doesn't mean anything. And so they just took, he gave them an inch. They then started trying to take a mile.
Yeah, well, and like even with the amnesty one, and there's multiple examples of this, there were supposed to be other immigration reform that went along with it that Congress never stepped up and did. So
Exactly.
it's just broken promises. But at the end of the day, what we've learned is the uniparty is a very real thing, and that's why they all hate Trump as bad as they do.
And it's funny because neither one of us would prefer Trump, but at the same time, you cannot deny it would be pretty fun to watch him take office again. There's a part of you I know that would love to see that happen, right?
For the it's still better than the leftist alternative. So I got to go with that. But
Cool. It's not just better than a leftist alternative. MSNBC just recently said that
it'll be
if Trump
funny
is
and all that
reelected,
sort of-
he will execute them. You would love to see the look on their faces if Trump won versus anyone else. I mean, that was a great time in 2016 when I remember I had my friend over and you kept coming up going, Trump won another state. They're freaking out. Because none of us thought he would win.
It reminded me so much of watching in '94 when the Gingrich Revolution happened and we took Congress, because that was a really unusual night. It was just one seat after the next kept falling, and then like Jesse Ventura all of a sudden is the governor of Minnesota. It was just lots of weird things happening. It was so much fun, and I think I said last time I was helping with a campaign for a state senator. And we toppled the Wicked Witch of the West for us. That was a rising star in the Democrat Party, and it was so much fun. But that night in 2016 reminded me of the same thing because it was just watching the faces on all the different news channels. They went from pure elation to this might be something for real to just disbelief, and then you saw all the stages of grief. It was just fun. It was funny.
Oh no, they never got out of the anger stage, I don't think.
No, you're right about that. They lived in that one.
They never got to the acceptance.
But I mean, in 20, I voted for Trump and had a good conscience about it. In 16, I voted for him out of a kind of a protest vote against the opposition.
Well, I mean, who would you really have running against Trump in 2016? I mean, Jeb Bush. I mean, come on, please clap.
Well, now in the primary, I was a Cruz guy.
That is true. That is true. And like I voted for Cruz as well during the primary. I think I even had like on my gamer tag on Xbox, so you could have like a little mini bio back there underneath of it. I had like Ted Cruz, 2016. Like I was 100% for Cruz, but once Trump got the nomination, I was like, all right, here we go. Let's see what Trump does. And it's funny. I remember telling my friend, one of my friends, back when Trump was talking about it like around 2012-ish, because he talked about like every single year of his life pretty much that he might eventually run. And one of my friends who's a hard leftist asked me, what would Donald Trump do if he was really president? Like, what would you think he would do? Because he knew like I liked the show The Apprentice, and obviously I was on the right. And I told him he would not reduce the size of government. He would simply make a big government run really effectively for the time he was in office. And for the most part, I am proud to say that like freshman year, I think it was like, no, not freshman. Oh, yeah, it's 2000, or around 2008 or so. So not 2012. So yeah, it would have been around freshman year in high school. Me was 100% right on Donald Trump. He made a big government run a lot more effectively without ever really reducing the size of government all that much, to be honest.
Yeah, and increasing the size of government.
Yeah.
So go ahead and be real about it. Increasing the size of government, increasing debt. There's a lot of missteps there, but there's
a lot of good.
I can't see, and I know you disagree with me, but I just don't see how any sane person can look at the field right now and not just immediately say Ron DeSantis should be president.
Vivek. When I hear DeSantis say he wants to take away voting rights from people, I'll consider DeSantis. I want more. No. I want less people voting. I want that so badly.
I'm gonna stick with him to the bitter end if that's what it takes. But
well, again, I know because there's a big thing, of course, on Twitter or X now, as well as just all social media sites. I just hammering DeSantis left and right. And don't get me wrong, he's a little wooden for me, and I do think a lot of his answers are kind of rehearsed. But nothing he says is really wrong, and that's the thing. Like, I would be extraordinarily happy to see DeSantis as president. I would be extraordinarily happy to see Vivek as president. I would be still pretty happy to see Trump as president. So
anybody that may be listening in, check out DeSantis's interview with Jordan Peterson. That was an A plus.
I did watch some of the clips for that, and he did. He did a decent job with it.
It was mostly if you've read
personal stuff,
if
mostly.
you've read or audibled his book, then it was mostly straight from the book. So I'm just like you said, it's rehearsed. But what politician doesn't have some of these answers rehearsed? They're asked the same questions a million times. They have to say the same thing a million times.
But here's the thing: you're a public speaker by trade. I've seen you tell the same story probably 20 times over, and every time you've made it sound like a fresh story. All right, I've heard the same stories so many times, but every time you tell it, I'm back going like, "Oh yeah, that's a good point." You're telling me that you're able to do what DeSantis can't? I mean, come on, he's the governor of Florida. He should be able to find new ways of addressing the same questions and just make it feel more fluid is all. Because it feels like...
Are you challenging me to step up and tell you how good I am? Because I'm just that good. That's the answer to that question. Yeah, I'm that good.
I love how this is me basically saying that DeSantis is very much lacking, and you jump to the thing of, oh yeah, I'm better than DeSantis. I love this.
Yeah, I like this line of questioning. Let's roll with this one. Now, I mean, there's certain techniques you can use as a public speaker and that sort of thing. It's different than being a politician.
But that's the thing. Like,
if I go off script and say something stupid, nobody's going to really think twice about it because I sometimes get off script and say stupid things. If he gets off script and says something stupid, it could ruin everything.
We need great orators again, though. That's what we really, really need. And unfortunately, Trump is sure as hell not that, all right? I'm not saying Trump is that, all right? Don't even think for a second. Trump is a comedian. He's a great comedian. He has great stage presence. He's not a great orator, though he has done a very good job when he is on script. His State of the Union addresses were very solid, but...
Solid, but not great.
Not great.
The problem is the definition of great orator these days. Just because you can read the teleprompter with some feeling doesn't mean you're a great orator.
Yeah.
Obama gets way more credit for his oration than what he deserves.
Well, especially the second anything goes awry, he can't handle it anymore.
Yeah, when the teleprompter went haywire, he struggled. As far as politician goes, though, A+. He's personable and handles the room very well. But I just think he's overrated as an orator.
I want to question that as well, because if he did not have the media just defending him 24/7, could he ever possibly defend himself? I mean, really.
Well, it would be an interesting, kind of like alternate universe story we could do to talk about what happens in the Bizarro world where he actually has to answer tough questions about bombing weddings and U.S. citizens and all the things that weren't scandalous. But he never had to face that. So in the setting that he was in, he gets a good grade.
I don't know. If he actually was asked real questions, he'll be like, what's her name? John Pierre or whatever, the Biden press secretary. Be like, bye. And just head on out.
Yeah, she every once in a while, she could learn to circle back. Like the last one I did.
What was it she said?
Saying nothing is better.
Well, I love that she'll keep saying stuff and no one know what it meant, but all of a sudden the media started using the phrase like crazy to make sure it seemed like a regular thing. She said like top of mind at one point, and like everyone was kind of thinking, well, that's kind of a very strange way of putting something. And then all of a sudden, all these articles start using top of mind just everywhere for no reason whatsoever. It was not used before. Now all of a sudden it's used everywhere. The way they try to cover for people is hysterical.
You were talking about witness collusion. The witness collusion before the Senate hearing is nothing compared to the press collusion.
Oh, I know.
I mean, they all have the same template and run the same stories with the same language.
What was it called? I forget if it was the communists or the Nazis. They had a phrase for what they called the media. Was it the fourth column or something like that? Something like that, where it was they're supposed to be the propaganda arm of the government in all cases, and how you could put them in another country and actually use them to destabilize an entire region if you want to without any struggle.
Yeah.
And that's really what our media has become. And it was really hysterical when Elon registered the BBC as, he put, government funded as a warning on their website or on their Twitter account. And they lost their mind, even though it's 100% true.
Yeah. So, I mean, Hitler had Goebbels, Stalin in Russia had Pravda, which ironically enough means truth.
And
But
so what does Joe Biden have? Who would he have? Who's that girl from MSNBC? Who's that woman on there?
Maddow.
Maddow, yeah. So and Biden has Maddow. There you go.
Well, Biden has NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, MSNBC.
He kind of has Fox too. Let's be real. He has probably the majority of Fox. I mean, there's some obviously on there that are still all right, but like there was a whole segment where they were showing Trump's speech, and he talked about, of course, the election, and instantly they cut away from him going, and Trump's there saying lies again about the 2020 election. And,
they have to, because they got sued for the whole Dominion thing, so they're scared to death now.
Have some cojones. I don't know. Just stand your damn ground. I hate this crap so much that people aren't willing to. I guess it's easy for me to say because no one's paying attention to me enough for me to ever even become a martyr. I mean, that's kind of a good thing, but there's been very few people who are actually willing to.
You keep putting stuff out there, baby. They might be coming for you soon enough.
Well, yeah, when they're locking me in a jail, when they're locking me in a jail cell, I go, I've made it.
Yeah, I'll guarantee our FBI monitors are high-fiving right now with some of the things.
But in all seriousness, it's one of these things where when the Fighting Fire signed the documents, and it's funny, me and Kat were actually looking at it because she was surprised at how young they actually were. How most of them were, of course, early 30s. I think the youngest one was 26 years old, right? Crazy to think about. And, when they signed the Declaration of Independence, it was, they knew that if things didn't go right, they would die. Their family members would probably die as well. Their children would die. Like, they took that risk regardless. But now, like, no one wants to take that risk anywhere. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut over to here a little bit and say, a big part of it's also like Christians even won't even take that risk. People who have their faith, people who actually say, this is my ultimate belief superior to all else. And even they kowtow to this crap. It's insane. I mean, how many churches have we seen videos of where they're actually buying into the whole trans stuff as well? Because they're scared of what people might think of them. I mean, this is your ultimate faith in the universe, and even they are not going to stand by it. I mean, it's pathetic.
Yeah, the churches aren't where they definitely need to be. The Christian churches, we aren't where we need to be. I should say we, because I'm as guilty as anyone. You have opportunities to stand up and defend your faith, and it's easier to walk away. It's easier to say nothing. And it's hard not to take that easy way out, because who wants to get into the argument? I mean, we both go to church regularly, and I get people asking me questions that are faith-based all the time. If you're online ever, you get challenged, whether indirectly or directly, all the time. And very few people will stand up and defend, because there's so many. But a lot of folks now, they'll say things like, I don't go to church because whatever reason, and I'm spiritual. I don't need to go to church, and that sort of thing. When we're talking business and we say that as a business owner, you've got to have a big inner circle around you that you can depend on, that's going to be there for you. You've got to have a positive mindset. You've got to do all these things intentionally so that the weight of the world doesn't bring you and your business down. If you say that very same thing in the context of you need to go to church, have a church family, have a good spiritual inner circle, you're automatically just considered crazy for saying it. And it's the exact same thing, because there's so many, you're attacked as a Christian from so many different directions. You're attacked from everywhere. And if you're on your own, you're gonna give in. It's tough. And so my advice to everybody is to find a good spiritual support group, a good church that you can get into that'll help you with the spiritual. But that spiritual, mental, and physical health are the core of everything we do.
Yep.
That should be where our focus is.
I have used that Napoleon Hill quote basically at so many of my speeches I've done, and it's funny because that kills like every time. Like, people absolutely love it that we exist on the three planes, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual, because you can break that down to so many different concepts. Like, I love utilizing it, but it's extremely true, right? Like, if you're not physically as good as you can be, because obviously some people have different issues, but as good as you can be, that's going to affect you mentally. And if you're not there mentally, that's going to affect you spiritually. If you're not there spiritually, well, you're going to go right back around, and you're probably not going to be good physically or mentally either, right? So those three do have to kind of be in harmony.
Well, in that same vein, we are spiritual beings gifted with an intellect, living in a physical plane and a physical body. And if we ignore the spiritual part of that equation, nothing else matters. One of the shorts that you put up, we were talking about purpose, and somebody challenged it on one of the comments. It was like, purpose. There's no purpose. We're just on this rock for whatever time or whatever. I can't live that way. I truly believe that we are spiritual beings gifted with this intellect that says we're worth something, we're worthy, and there's something really ideal that we should be working toward.
And this is the religious podcast with Deacon Stacy Barnes.
It ties into the politics side.
It does 100%.
Because people are afraid to speak up and really stand for anything. And if you don't stand for something, then you'll fall for everything, is the old saying.
So I've been actually trying to go through my Bible a bit more recently, and it's funny because it was a while back I got to it, but I got to a story, of course, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? And I absolutely love that story because it's one of my favorite for the important reason of they basically look at the government and say, fuck you, and then just, we're not going to do what you tell us, basically. I love it. It's entirely, you could take that story as entirely, again, I always say this, if you're not religious, the Bible is still the greatest philosophical book ever written by man, if that's the case, okay? You don't have to be religious to acknowledge this is the greatest book on philosophy ever written, okay? It doesn't matter. You don't have to believe everything there is in it, at least not right away. I hope that you do eventually, but it is the greatest book on philosophy ever written. But on that story, the king says, you must worship at our idol, or at least give some praise to the idol, or else, we don't get, the nation as a whole won't, work out. And so we'll imprison you first. And of course he threatens to kill them and burn them alive. And they keep telling the king basically, F you, we're not going to do it. We're not going to bow to your idol. We will not concede. We will not give an inch. And in the end, they're going to that fire thinking they're going to die probably, right? Like it's not a instant, they have faith, but come on, you're going to a furnace. You're probably thinking, oh, geez, this is going to hurt at least a little bit. But still, they tell the king no. And that's an important lesson that we don't have today anymore, where we're not willing to tell people no. We keep thinking that if we concede, that's an act of kindness, when in reality, it's an act of weakness in some cases. Sometimes it could be an act of kindness, depending on what you're conceding on. But if you're conceding against your true values, then it's not an act of kindness at all. It's you just being weak. And we don't seem to have that separation at all anymore.
Man, I hope I'm never tested to walk into a furnace, because
that would be tough. I'm not going to lie.
I might fail the test. But that last little bit you said there, that to me, it's critically important. We have to take a stand when we're supposed to take a stand. And if we can't take a stand for the issues that we're talking about tonight with children, if we can't take a stand against the mutilation of children, if we can't take a stand against the attempted eradication of an entire group of people, I mean, when the heck are we going to ever take a stand if we can't take a stand against these things that are happening right around us right now?
Well, again, this is where I think the Daily Wire was 100% correct when they basically came out and said, they were asked, are you really going to die on the hill of transgenderism? And they were like, yes, we will, because it's such a blatant example of truth versus false, right? It's not even a question here. Like, you can make some arguments about, some merits about different ideas of, economic theory. Sure. I mean, you could be a Keynesian and just be wrong, but, there's a debate there, right? When it comes to transgenderism, no, there is not a debate. A man's a man and a woman is a woman. It's as simple as that. And it's funny because, I mean, Lord knows we get in trouble on the YouTube for possibly even saying that. And we sure as hell would be taken down if I posted that clip right there on TikTok or Facebook. I mean, that's how crazy of a world we live in now. So yes, we do actually have to take a stand on some things. And we can't just keep walking it back.
Well, and I don't know if this one was queued up for you to show, but Riley Gaines at Congress being called transphobic, and she fought back. And that's what we all have to do. She is one brave young lady, and she fought back. She said, okay, well, if that's the case, then this is what you're going to say, then you're a misogynist. And and of course the Democrats lost their minds and tried to have it stricken from the record, but they didn't. They left it in.
And that really shows you who they really are, right? The fact of you get a hit on them, and their first idea is quick, erase
Censorship.
it. Yeah, erase it, cover it up. I'm totally 1984, right? It's, anything that goes against the party has to be erased. So we have someone who just commented. His name is the Moody Jews, and JOOZ. So he said, "Read the Transgender Industrial Complex." I don't think I've heard about that book, but I'll definitely have to look it up then. Because there is an entire complex around it. Like, there is an entire medical industry that does nothing but make tons of money. Because once you go through one of these things, you are now a client of theirs for life, right? Like, if you are age 12 and you get your hormones messed up, you are messed up forever. And it was funny. I remember when I did, went to a boxing gym for a little bit, there were some young people who were talking about doing stuff like steroids. And everyone told them, no, don't do it. I mean, for one reason, because you're competing. If you get caught, your career is kind of done. But that's another issue entirely. But the main reason people kept saying is, you're so young, you're going to screw up your body for life, right? Like, if we know for a fact, if like a 18-year-old takes steroids, there's a good chance they will never produce the same levels of hormones they ever will again. And there's a lot of problems when it comes to just taking steroids. Yet for women, we're just going to say, here's a ton of steroids, go crazy. Because you have to remember, when you look at like the average difference between the amount of testosterone in like someone like me versus someone like Arnold at his peak, it's actually only about ×2 the average man's testosterone is what Arnold was at, which gave him that massive of a difference, right? For the average man compared to the average woman, it's nearly 10 times the amount of testosterone. So you have to really consider how big of an effect that actually is. And how many changes that then creates on the human body when you start injecting these children with all these compounds.
The argument that comes back is that's why we must have the medical profession involved in this and guiding it. So what do you think of that? You don't trust the doctors to have all this stuff figured out already so they know the exact dosages?
CNN had an article out, and I don't have it pulled up because I didn't expect it to come up, but they had an article out saying that like one of the first times in their studies, they say that I think it was close to 70% of Americans don't trust their doctors or think they know more than their doctors. And like part of me thinks, I think that's actually kind of sad. Like it's actually a bad thing that we've got to this point because we should be able to look to our doctors and trust that they have our best interest at heart, right? We should be able to. But the reality is that a lot of doctors are bought and paid for if you're in certain areas, and a lot of them are. I mean, there is a medical industrial complex to a certain regard. They do want to make you a client for life.
It definitely is.
They want to give you a bunch of like Vicodin and crap like that, and make sure you keep coming back for more. I mean, I remember when I broke my ankle and my elbow at the same time, and they gave me so much oxy, and I never took any of it. I told them I wasn't hurting that bad at all, and they still gave me so much oxy. It was like 2 things of it. And they even had that warning telling me, don't take too much or you could get really, messed up in the head. And it was very clear, basically I'd get high. And they, he considered to say, if you take way too much, you could even die. I think I took it like once or twice and that was it. But I told them I'm not hurting. Like I broke my ankle and I went and shot basketball with my friends afterwards. Like I wasn't in a lot of pain. I pulled a U and was shooting the basketball left-handed while, trying not to stand on my left foot. It was kind of comedic.
The difference is I can actually shoot with either hand. You can shoot with neither hand.
Way to call me out. I'm 6'5". I don't have to. I just got to get right onto the goal. It's nice. But no, they gave me so much drugs when I didn't even need it, didn't even ask for it. And they didn't care. Didn't care one bit. When it comes to the transgenderism stuff, they know they can keep pumping. If they just get these kids on one thing for the rest of their life now, they're not only hooked, but now they're actually just required to live to continue to go back to these doctors. Because once you've messed up your body to that extent, there's no going back entirely. Like you just won't be able to.
Well, and it's not like we have a track record, so we don't, a lot of the really long-term effects are just completely unknown.
Exactly.
What we know, we have a history of people who've tried to detrans, and so we know that process is almost impossible, just like you've described.
Yeah.
But how about 30 years after that? 40 years after that? What is all of this doing that's going to last, or is it something where you'll never even know because they don't last that long? I mean, who knows what it's actually doing?
What will probably end up happening in a lot of cases is that if the Democrats have their way, then news reports on it will simply get buried or censored entirely. I think it was in England, like a couple reports were coming out about a whole group of people who were detransitioners coming out against the whole transgender movement, and they completely censored the crap out of them. I think some of them went to jail, or they might not have gone to jail, but I think they were fined for hate speech and stuff like that. All because they were trying to share their stories on detransitioning, how you can't do it basically, and that we need to stop transitioning children. So, I mean, you see it in other countries. They censor it like crazy. What are they going to do here if the left wins? Who knows? But
it already gets censored here.
Yes, it gets censored by Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and all that.
Yeah, everybody thinks that media bias is based on what they show. There's much more media bias around what they don't show.
Yes.
Again,
when I was talking about Obama before, saying he never had to actually answer any of the questions about anything he actually did, the media just acted like it never even existed. Like they acted like the biggest controversy was the tan suit thing, right? That's what they purposely go with, stuff like that, to make sure that you think he's spotless when he isn't. So you're 100% right. Their biggest power is probably in hiding things more than actually attacking people.
Yeah, there used to be a lot of examples of this, but the one that they always said was Babe Ruth. They were on the train going from city to city, and a naked lady ran by, and naked Babe Ruth runs by behind him, and one reporter looks at the other one and says, "Boy, it's a good thing we didn't see that, or we'd have to report on it."
I think I've heard that one. That's good.
And that's kind of how the whole thing has gone from that point forward. It hasn't changed a lick.
Well, it's funny because we act like there was this once great era of media when there really wasn't. And maybe we can talk about going into details on that a different day, but we can at least say when you go back to like the original media in this country, I mean, it was literally owned by the political parties. Like, you basically the Republican times and Democrat times. Like that's
the Jefferson Adams election and the things that were going on there were just that. I mean, that was crazy enough with what they were doing. And
this is why I also don't get on
media manipulation was A+, man.
This is also why I don't give Trump too much crap for some of the things he says about when he insults people, because I'm like, man, nothing even compares to the stuff they said back then. What does he say about what did he say about Adams, that he was not masculine enough to be a man, but not refined enough to be a woman or something like that? Like basically calling him
androgynous, but it wasn't supposed to come out that he's the one that said it, right? So Nikki Haley she definitely wouldn't like the anonymous names, the sources that they were using back then, and not using their real names.
All I'm saying is we used to have people literally caned to death, in the middle of Congress. Things actually aren't that bad when it comes to some of that stuff, at least. So I don't have a problem with the insults being tossed around. In fact, I find the honesty somewhat refreshing at this point.
Well, with Trump, it's not always honesty, though. He's just going for the laugh. He's going for the stick. He reads the room, or he thinks he reads the room. And most of the time, he's right.
I'd say majority of the time, he is right.
Yeah. When some of the times in front of the camera, in front of the nation, not so much. Some of those.
What do you say on Handy recently?
Some of those COVID press conferences were just brutally bad.
Well, what do you say on Handy recently? Where he's like, well, I mean, I'll only be a dictator for the first day. After that, I'm good. It's like,
oh, yeah, no, and then they ran dictator. They ran with that, and it was an obvious joke.
It was an obvious joke, but the setup for it wasn't really built for the delivery of it. So,
right, he didn't read the
exactly. Because even Handy was like, "Wait, what did you just say?"
And he kept trying to cover for him. Hannity was being his best friend.
I know.
No, that's not what you mean. That's not what you really mean. That's not what the dictator you mean.
It's clear it's a joke, but at the same time, you're right. Reading the room sometimes isn't his best. But when he's in front of his actual crowds,
yeah. When it's red meat to be thrown, he's the king. Of red meat.
He is the king at that.
Yeah. So he knows that side of the equation.
So real quick, because before you talked about, we were talking about a little bit in the past there about kind of religion and meaning and stuff like that. So one of the last things I want to pull up here is, have you heard of the phrase DINK? DINK?
Not until recently, and I hate to admit I'm this old, but I had to Google to figure out what they meant when they were chanting it, because I had no idea what they were talking about.
So I want to pull up this video real quick. And so for those of you who don't know, DINK means dual income, no kids. So it's a theme on TikTok about these people posting about the fact of how they both are basically together, but they have no children, so they have a bunch of income coming in. But just watch this clip right here.
We go to Trader Joe's and workout classes on the weekends.
We're dinks. We get into snobby hobbies.
We're dinks. We go to Trader Joe's and workout classes on the weekends.
We're dinks. We get into snobby hobbies like skiing and golfing.
We're dinks. We can go to Florida on a whim.
We're dinks. We're already planning our European vacation next year.
Dinks. We get a full 8 hours of sleep and sometimes more.
We're dinks. We get desserts and appetizers at restaurants.
We're dinks. We can play with other kids and give them back.
We're dinks. We still do it 3 times a week.
We're dinks. We spend our discretionary income on $8 lattes.
We're dinks. We max out our 401ks, Roth IRAs, and HSAs.
We're dinks. We don't use our kids or dog as an excuse to leave a party. We just leave. We're dinks.
Okay, so how much of this is coping? I mean, because it really seems like it's, because everything they're listing out here, like 90% of it, like me and Kat do, and we have kids. Like we go out to restaurants. Well, we went snowboarding in Virginia when we had Junior still with us. Like,
yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm a big believer in individual freedom. If that's what they want, God bless them. Let them have it. And most likely, if I'm going to guess their politics, I'm pretty happy they're not procreating. So it's all okay with me.
Well, that's been the big thing that people have been kind of joking about a little bit, is the fact of, like, you know, like this person right here, you know, Malcolm Flex. Not sure if you heard of him. He's a pretty good person to follow. Or at least I've seen him like on some other shows. But, you know, imagine ending your genetic line for creature comforts. Like, if you're really going to just end your genetic line all because you want to have an $8 latte, like, come on. Like, probably it's a good thing you aren't having kids.
Well, caring about your genetic line is colonialism, James.
Oh, yeah, entirely. Me wanting to have, like, you know, hopefully 3 to 5 kids, you know, that's just patriarchy and, you know, Western chauvinism, right?
Yeah, but I mean, if that's how they want to live, let them live that way. That's cool. And don't procreate. I'm okay with that.
And the thing that kind of disturbs me about, though, is like how prevalent it is all over TikTok. So if you look up on TikTok, it is everywhere.
Well,
and not
if,
just
we're
that,
gonna, if you want me to get serious about this, James, we can get serious about it. I'd rather make fun and ridicule. But obviously, I don't know that true happiness can be found in pursuit of nothing but creature comforts. And
Yes.
so if they think they're going to ever find some deeper meaning and really find true happiness, I don't think that's the path to find it. But I believe in their freedom and their right to do so.
Well, it's
And
probably
I'm glad they're not having kids.
So I kind of have this theory that maybe there's always going to be some type of natural culling of a population, like whether it be natural disaster, whether it be illness, or whether times just get so good that people just stop having kids and stop caring about their future because they have everything in the now. I really do think that they're probably just, because you see it all throughout history, right? Of just population goes up, goes down, up, down, and the trajectory always goes up in the end, but there's always these dips, right? And I wonder if we're about to hit a massive dip all because of stuff like this, right? Of people just having so much available to them, they become so greedy, so narcissistic, they only go after what gives them pleasure in the now and not even think about in the future. Because, I mean, I think someone posted something on here. It was like, you know, hey, we're dinks. You know, we'll hire someone else's children to take care of us when we're old because we'll be lonely and have no kids of our own at all. Yeah, they'll get nothing in the long term for it, but because they're narcissistic to a certain degree, they just care about the now. They care about the fact of, hey, I get to go get my coffee. I get to go out to a restaurant and order whatever I want. I get to spend all this money that really at the end won't matter that much because, I mean, multiple reasons, right? One, just inflation is going to divide the currency anyway, so what does it even matter, I guess? But
Well, here's the thing and I've had a pretty good blessed life, I would say. I've done some really cool things, seen some good things, and stayed in nice places, eaten at great restaurants. I had you and Megan, but what I wouldn't take anything for are the trips where we stayed in the tent, I wouldn't take anything for you and I walking across the Grand Canyon together. That's there's nothing. And I love, you know, I love your mom. I love Jennifer to death. There's nothing that can replace the moments where all of us were together. And if you remember when you guys were kids, we made a point that when we went somewhere, we all went.
Yeah. Yeah.
We shared the tent, we shared the room, whatever it was we were doing. We were all there together. We were playing games. And those are the moments that I care the most about. That's what's on this board right back here. So all the other stuff, the fine restaurants and all the cool places I've been and trips I've taken, they pale in comparison to those times.
It's one of those things like, you know, you're right. We've both been very blessed because we both had jobs that had us travel all over the country to a certain regard, and for you, even like, and you went to Australia and got to scuba dive on the Great Barrier Reef. I mean, come on. I mean, it doesn't get much cooler than that. But like, I got to go live in Alaska for a few months during the winter. Like, that was so freaking awesome. Like, I absolutely loved it. You know, I got to learn how to snowboard. I got to see the start of the Iditarod. Like, it was so cool. But at the same time, do what?
You saw moose walking through the city, going to the bank.
I never thought in my life I'd be late to work because a moose wouldn't get out of the road. But what do you know? But here's the funny thing, you know, as fun as that was, and as fun as I found it traveling all across the country routinely, even when I went to crappy places like New York City during COVID, because during COVID, like, my God, it was a hellhole. I still enjoyed the fact that I'm just traveling. Like, I absolutely love it. But once we had Junior, like literally once we had Junior, I remember I called up my manager and said, yeah, I'm not going to be doing this anymore, because they were having me travel just to such a large extent, obviously, that I would have been gone multiple weeks every single month with what I was doing. I just couldn't do it. And like, I would literally trade any of those trips I went on for more time with the kids for the most part, right? Like, if I could just erase the Alaska trip and just have like an extra 3 months earlier having the kids, I probably would. It was that, you know, the kids are that important to me. Like, I love the fact now I can see them almost every single day, right? Like, that's amazing. And it's one thing, I don't think people even, they act like having these kids are such a big burden. And yes, it's a lot of responsibility. I understand, like, I definitely have more of an appreciation of what y'all went through, that's for sure. But at the same time, like, when I come inside the door and, you know, the kids are downstairs playing with Kat, and not the Kat. Kat is my wife. But when I open that door and I hear Junior go, Dad, Dad, and he runs up and gives me a hug, and, you know, he kisses me on like the cheek. Like, nothing compares to that. Not even close.
Yeah, hearing him say Papa works pretty hard on me too. But, so, and again, let's just throw this out. Not everyone can make the choice to stay home like you did. So when you were born, I was still traveling a lot.
Yeah.
I spent your first birthday, I was on a business trip sitting on Waikiki Beach in Honolulu. So it was tough. Somebody had to do it. But no, I traveled. But what we did is I mean, your mom was just great. She took care of everything to the point so that when I was home for the few days that I would be at home, I was 100% focused on you, and then later on you and Megan, where we could just do stuff together so that my time wasn't spent taking care of the mundane things. So she worked double duty. She earned a medal for sure. I'm not sure what kind of medal it would be, but it should be a really big one, a really good one.
You're saying you're a misogynist and put most of the obligations on Mom.
Well, I didn't ask for it. She just did it. And when I questioned her about it, she goes, "No, I want you to spend your time with the kids because they need a father's influence.
Yeah.
And so when you're here, they need to see you as their dad."
Well, you know, that's one thing I've said to you multiple times, because, you know, you brought the fact of, like, you kind of regret being away. It weren't like you were gone a terrible amount, but you still wish you weren't away as much as you were. And one thing I said to you was the fact that, yeah, but every single time you were home, right? Like, if you were
credit,
like if you were around, you were going to show up to like all of our sports games if you were there, right? If you were there, even if it was like as boring as my golf, you know, competitions in high school. I don't know, with the way I played golf, it might not have been too boring. I'm not sure, but but even then, like, you know, y'all showed up.
I stayed to the back. There was no danger.
I don't know. With my slice, it might have came back around like a boomerang. But and our vacations, you know, we took like a week or 2 weeks, and like you said, it was just all of us together. These people will never experience that though.
No,
They never will. And now that's
and,
what's being pushed on more and more people, though, who are in the younger generations.
And it's kind of like right back to the first thing we're talking about with the kids. Once they get to a certain point, the option is no longer there. And there's nothing at that point you can do but look back, and I'm afraid it's going to be a lot of regret for those folks. But again, it's their choice, it's their life. I support their freedom to make the choice. But if they're expecting to find deep meaning in carnal desire, I think they're going to come up a little short.
It isn't funny, though, that the left, who is against the ideas of capitalism because they say it extorts labor for the idea of just monetary gain, is also the side who goes, hey, I'll forego probably the greatest thing in life for monetary gain.
Right. Well, and with what they're saying, it's exactly what the government wants. That they want us to be consumers. They want us to be out spending, and the drones that are working, paying taxes and spending. So, the leftist government's happy with what they're doing.
And it's funny because I'm pretty sure these are also the same people who will live in a city and then complain they can't find an affordable house or something like that either. Like, oh, we have to have $200,000 to live. Well, no. You could live off $40,000 a year if you lived outside of New York or San Fran, or just, people live on like $40,000, $50,000 pretty comfortably in more middle of nowhere areas. Yet they're going around well, no, if we don't have our dual income, how are we going to be able to, provide for ourselves? We can't even provide for a child without, having the dual income coming in. Well, not entirely. I mean, you just have to reduce what you're doing when it comes to how you're living your life is all. I mean, we cut back on a lot of stuff we do. We don't DoorDash ever, right? We don't ever order DoorDash whatsoever anymore, when we used to actually order it, not all the time, but a fair amount of time, right? So it's so childish. It's so narcissistic.
It's a big piece of it.
And the worst part is I know so many people who are in the exact same mindset as people like that.
Well, there's only so much living for self first that you can do before it becomes right. Let's go back to ridicule. That's more fun. We get a little serious. It makes me a little sad.
You have to laugh or you'll cry, right?
That the whole world is maybe not the whole world. That's but there's such a big push to this whole ego being the center of everything, and fulfilling the carnal desire being the most important thing. It's been that way forever, but it's amplified with social media and everything else now.
Hey, this is the good part. You have those crazy Catholics over there having 7 kids apiece.
Well, that's who the FBI better be looking for. they better be going and shaking down priests and everyone else.
Yeah, so, you have the people on the right having multiple children, and you have people on the left like this who are either aborting their kids, sterilizing themselves, or just choosing not to have any kids whatsoever and do this whole dink nonsense. At the end of the day, who's going to end up winning out, right?
In the long run, yeah, I know. So this whole thing about the family name carrying on. Right now, Junior's got the burden.
We got to have some more sons. I know. Well, we got news. No, we don't have news. I would never announce it here, but maybe in the somewhat near future. We have a time frame. We do have a time frame. Because I'm getting old here. I'm in my 30s now. I have to hurry up.
The big 3-0 hits hard, buddy.
All right.
Not nearly as hard as the big 5-0. So just hold on to your feet for that one.
Well, on that note, I think we'll go ahead and call it end for tonight.
Hey, I just out of curiosity, real quick before you call it, the picture behind you that I see on my left, your right, is that your Bob Ross creation?
Oh yeah, the mountain right here. Yes, that is my painting. I made that painting. I mean, I'm just gonna say, I look at that, and isn't that a beautiful painting right there?
I know the one above it, my mama painted, and she's a good artist. But I had no idea that you were an artist too until Kat did a Bob Ross party with you.
I'm not sure if painting with Bob Ross counts. You have that masterpiece up there that's actual art, and then you have me just copying someone else's stuff.
I think it looks good though, and it's a nice background. I was sitting here the whole time like,
It gives like I don't know why, it gives like almost the Lord of the Rings-esque feel to me, so I like it, because of course I'm a nerd. As you can tell with my AT-AT up there, and my Master Chief helmet with a Santa Claus hat on it. So yeah, I'm starting to get my Christmas stuff out.
Yeah, I got Fishing Santa behind me, so I'm sticking to the redneck theme that works for me.
Well, that means next week there'll be more Christmas stuff out. I might even have like my nice Christmas clock and my giant penguin I also have out. So.
No, but your picture looks good back there, and I was sitting here the whole time. I was like, I think that's the one he painted.
Well, you know what the funny thing is? The mic right now covers look at all those medals I have. Don't that look nice? Yeah, humble brag, humble brag.
The only one I show is the one that you gave me for crossing the Grand Canyon and rim to rim.
When I found that medal I could purchase for that, I was like, I got a gift. All right.
That was one of the greatest gifts I've ever gotten. That was fantastic.
And of course, I have to keep my half marathon one up there for sure. I need to find a better thing to do with that because, of course, that's where me and Kat got engaged. So hard to believe when I'm, 220 something pounds right now.
Yeah, 6'5", you can carry a few more pounds than I can. And I've shrunk a little bit. I think I'm down to 5'11" now, maybe less.
I just pull a DeSantis, wear some high heels.
And on that note, I set that one up and didn't even mean to.
On that note, we'll be back again on Wednesday. Hopefully more around 9, but given how we handle things, it might be like 9:15. We'll see. Either way,